The cycle of frescoes owes its existence to the founder of the Lambach convent, in what is today the tower chapel in the convent church. Bishop Adalbero of Würzburg, banished after the quarrel over his investiture, after the assassination of his family, sole living descendant of the Counts of Lambach and Wels. One year before his death, on the 15th of September 1089, he had the main altar of his monastic church of Lambach consecrated by Bishop Altmann of Passau, a place that according to the rules of the 11th century was destined to go to the imperial throne. The unusual position of the main altar, which he had decorated with a sequence of unusual images, frescoes, which do not simply narrate biblical stories, but update them to depict the quarrel over the investiture, and illuminate it from the point of view of Bishop Adalbero, a faithful follower of the Pope. The Epiphany, which depicts the splendor and the majesty of God, the story of the three magi from the east who came to adore him, to announce to the powerful of the earth the birth of the true King, Christ the Messiah. But Adalbero knows about the abuse of power on the part of the powerful, and the frescoes underline the difference between the announced king and the immense fear and fall of Herod, the ignoble end of a potentate, who does not hold his destiny in his own hands even once. The central pole of all this action is the throne of wisdom, Mary, holding in her lap the eternal Word, Christ, the true King. The altar is dedicated to her, Mary, around whom the altar was built and the room decorated with frescoes. Like shadows in front of the light of this throne appears the Jerusalem of Herod, with devils around the Lord. But this is a story that will always be repeated. A story that Christ himself was to experience in the temptation. The images of the chapel depict this as well. Not only do these demons appear in the wilderness of solitude, but they carry Jesus right up to the topmost point of the Temple of Jerusalem. For the painter of these frescoes, this is not a story of past times, as might be expected, as the gaze passes over the ancient vestments of these holy figures. They are not only abstract representations of a believed reality, even if their faces are depicted symmetrically, framed by halos. The King of Kings, who is the cause of the downfall of Herod, or is at the same time Adalberos, Emperor Henry IV, wears a royal crown. Both parties, during the quarrel of the investiture, claimed for themselves the vision, the divine order, to place against the Ordo Mundi. And both parties, in retrospect, paid a very high price for it. But the Lambach frescoes name criteria on which the real king and the right use of power must be based. Obedience above all before the word of God and his prophets is necessary, if God's will is to be manifest. So Jesus teaches the Baptist, who feels unworthy to baptize Christ in the waters of the Jordan. This submission frees Jesus to resist the temptation of the tempter in the wilderness. This obedience makes him crush the demons, who he chased away in the synagogue of Capharnaum. This great power Jesus uses to heal and relieve, as is depicted in the healing of Peter's mother-in-law. Adalbero was to take part in the conception of this world of images, which reflects the spirit of that reform movement of Gorze and the reform papacy of Gregory VII, whose side the Bishop of Würzburg took against all the potentates of the realm. It's not surprising that these frescoes show the influence of southern styles, Byzantine artisan work, which had come up through Venice, ancient techniques of fresco painting brought back to Europe, techniques that had been thought lost in time after the fall of the Roman Empire. Here at Lambach we meet these influences for the first time north of the Alps. But things went no differently for the frescoes in the Lambach West Choir. These were also forgotten and walled up to make foundations for the Baroque West Tower. It took almost 100 years before the discovery of their existence and the uncovering of the frescoes in 1967. Today, a steel structure bears the weight of the tower. Modern building techniques lead the gaze to a world of medieval images believed lost, and again places us before the ancient issue of the proper use of power, its dangers and its opportunities. If we are once again ready to fight, to seek our truth, and if we are optimistic enough to want to build a world together, based on a hope in God, that He might reveal Himself where His word reigns in mutual respect and obedience.